A warm welcome back to GlobeTrotting. The COVID-19 pandemic seriously damaged several airlines' operations and caused adjustments in fleets. Singapore Airlines used the pandemic as an opportunity to cut aircraft, a necessary decision to prioritise the business for the expected turbulent years ahead. While not removing all its Airbus A380s, the Changi-based operator did axe several units from its fleet. And why was this? Well, firstly, the Airbus A380 remains the world's largest passenger plane, and often its most significant impact is seen through Emirates' strong commitment to the series. However, other operators also purchased the plane in numbers, and that included Singapore Airlines. The carrier played an integral role in the early building blocks for the A380's hopeful long-term success. At the same time, this didn't pan out as Airbus intended, but commitments from Singapore Airlines were absolutely important. The plane represented an essential piece in the ever-complex jigsaw of this airline's operations, with the traditional hub and spoke model continuing to reign true. As a result, Singapore Airlines was the first operator to introduce the jet in 2007. The A380 was crucial to enabling high-capacity travel between some of the most established global cities. Following the first delivery, Singapore Airlines increased its reliance on the A380, becoming the second largest operator of the jet. The plane's presence across global hubs also began to rise. However, during the first quarter of 2020, the threat of lockdowns and the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic shifted the aviation industry into a position it had not seen before. Instead of airlines looking to grow their business, there was enhanced focus on coping with the newfound lack of demand, and major decisions had to be made. Some analysts did not predict demand to return for at least 4 to 5 years, so airlines like Singapore Airlines were axing flights, cutting employees, and equally focusing on the removal of aircraft. Demand would return quicker than expected, and many airlines are still playing catch-up to this day. However, hindsight remains a wonderful thing, and in the heat of the moment, these were necessary decisions for an incredible situation unfolding that none had been able to forecast. Singapore Airlines, for example, confirmed in November 2020 that it would retire 26 planes. The confirmation came during its financial results for the first half of that fiscal year. The biggest talking point was 7 A380s that were being removed from the operation. While this did not represent the whole Airbus A380 fleet, it must be said, it was still a mammoth decision by Singapore Airlines. The decision was reached after a thorough business review that aimed to remove aircraft that were deemed surplus to requirements, and 7 A380s were included in this. 2020 was a difficult year for the world's largest passenger plane. Singapore Airlines formed just one of the many international airlines that decided to either permanently axe the fleet type, retire some units, or just simply park up the whole fleet. These decisions weren't a shock, but they didn't make those who enjoyed the program feel any better about the prospects of its return. As the industry continued to face challenges, we know many airlines took the pandemic as an opportunity to renew their business, and this resulted in Airbus A380s being parked. As for why all of this happened, well, Singapore Airlines took the decision to remove some because it really stemmed from a thorough review of the business. Many airlines, like I said, used the pandemic as an opportunity to renew their fleet, with a greater focus on the reliance of next-generation wide-bodies for the future. In hindsight, this would have been definitely the right approach, but the execution maybe has not occurred as intended. As a result, internal reviews determined that Singapore Airlines needed to begin moving towards newer planes. The airline, however, was not in the camp of believing there wasn't a need for the A380, but maybe they could have fewer active jets from this series in the coming years. Demand would always allow for the return of this at some point. Singapore Airlines believed it would be better positioned to operate with fewer units, still focusing on your core markets such as London, Sydney, and beyond. Where does the A380 sit today? Well, Singapore Airlines still flies the type, but like I said, it has a more modest amount of aircraft. In response to the several units being axed, they still serve markets right around the world, just not of the same status as once before. Many airlines have chosen to reduce their commitments to the jet, but do still retain it to serve some of your high-capacity markets, and this is why we have seen a little bit of a resurgence for this aircraft type, which has been wonderful to see from an aviation enthusiast standpoint. However, for others, the plane is seen as a means to also combat the prospective capacity loss that they would be facing because of their own abilities to take on next-generation planes from Airbus and Boeing. The A380 is, thanks to its high capacity, seen as the perfect short-term solution. Regardless of Singapore Airlines' future direction, it will continue to be operating through a hub-and-spoke model right around the world, and it's going to require high-capacity jets, which will not be available through the A380 for much longer, but it shows that the company must transition towards some of your newer and more efficient wide-body planes, which is really the best it's going to get in the next few decades. Thank you very much for tuning into this analysis right back here on GlobeTrotting. Take care, and I'll see you in a few days. Subscribe if you haven't already. Your support is always appreciated. And we'll fly.